I had 2 acting coaches in my scene with me. So yeah, I was a little nervous.
To a place where you as Ashton, you as the actual actor might feel that way.
You know, if it were me doing these things, I would be very embarrassed. But because it's the character, I feel safe.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Adam Lowder. This is In the Moment. My guest today is Ashton Lewis. Ashton, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I'll introduce you just a little bit. I just want to kind of give the audience an awareness of you without you having to kind of brag on yourself. I'll do it for you. So you obviously, you may know this. I think you know this. You were my first official acting student. Did you know that?
Oh. For some reason, I thought you had like 1 or 2 others before me.
No.
So
well,
that is,
I say official because I was kind of testing an online student because he really wanted to work with me. And so I sort of worked with him a little bit, which was great. And he grew, which I was really excited to see because I didn't think you could really teach through Zoom remotely quite, because I learned obviously in person. And so you were my first in-person student that I ever actually officially taught.
How cool.
I know. So it's really special for me to have you on. And it's really, there's something about acting, I think actors listening would understand this, but something very unique and special about an acting class and how you bond and how you grow and also how you're with each other in such vulnerable situations, and yet hopefully in the best classes really supporting that vulnerability and the freedom to express yourself. And so it took a lot of courage, and you can speak to this, to be the only student in the class, where obviously Katie, my wife, was also there and she was working with you, which was awesome. And even she kind of grew through working with you and spending that time. But it's been such a blessing to be able to like get to know you that way, but also we became fast friends, and I'm excited to have you here. So welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. It is awesome to be here as your first official student.
Yeah. No, thank you.
I didn't even realize. That's cool.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So, we have the same initials.
Right.
ACL.
Yep.
We're
same
basically
initials.
the same height.
We're almost exactly the same height.
Grew up in the same area.
Right.
Both actors.
Both actors.
Right.
Almost wore the same exact outfit this morning.
We swapped shoes. Yeah.
I had on a blue jacket.
You did. You took it off.
I took it off
contrast,
for
which
contrast.
I appreciate.
Yeah.
Just
so we are the same person.
We are. This is a mirror image. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah.
And you are too.
Yeah.
Today, with this podcast and with these conversations, and I just really want to delve into what is it really like to be an actor, not only creatively, but also just in the world. What is it like on a day-to-day basis, not only just from the creative and career standpoint, but just what does it take to possess somebody to go into acting? It's usually met with a head scratch or a little confusion from a parent, or worry from someone who understands maybe the potential difficulties of it. I want you to just take your time in expressing what got you into acting and how did you start?
Yeah. Oh man. So, I started like so many people as kid number 3 in Rumpelstiltskin at the age of 8. And I have, my mom has this story that she likes to tell me. I actually remember this, which is after like my very first rehearsal of that. I was very skeptical of the whole thing going into it. And very first rehearsal coming out, and I'm like, Mom, I love this. And I always think back to that I often feel like as an adult, when I do like children's shows, I often feel like I'm like performing to that version of myself in a way of like, this is the kid that needed the adult to be performing and doing this kind of thing. Which is kind of what acting means to me, which is not the question you asked, but nonetheless, it's how I got into it. And I, again, like so many people did stuff throughout high school and all that. I took a break. I went to film school. I was away from acting for 7 years, which were some of the worst 7 years of my life. not literally, but just in the sense that when I came back to acting, I was like, what was I doing? Like, this is what I love. Yeah, it was after doing corporate video and getting fired from a job that I started pursuing acting professionally and started taking classes and, started taking classes, doing short films, a few plays here and there, things like that. And so it's so funny to look back on the whole journey. I think people often say that life can only be lived forward, but it can only be understood backwards. And looking back and just seeing like all the things that happened that helped me get to the next spot and how much fear I had in front of each one of those of just like, I don't know what's happening. It's been really amazing to see the growth and just how far along I've come with everything.
Do you remember when you were kid number 3 in Rumpelstiltskin? Do you remember feeling any fear when you were doing that at all?
I don't remember that show. I do remember the next show I did, which was The Princess and the Pea, I think. I was like a guard. And it's so funny. I was so precocious as a kid. I was like a palace guard and, cause it's like children's theater. So they're trying to teach us a little bit of like how to like put a character together, whatever. And so they said, write a little history for yourself of your character and, create like a character. So I came in as this palace guard. I decided to have an Australian accent for this character, because why would he not be from Australia in The Princess and the Pea? Why not? So I showed up. I had written this whole thing about this guy, this guard that had 2 lines in the show, of course, but it's funny taking that and coming now and doing bit parts. And I'm like, I put the same effort into those things because now I actually see how much it does matter when I see bit parts on film that I can tell if the actor prepared or not. Anyway, all that detour to say, I do remember feeling fear with that character. 'Cause I was nervous about the accent. I had set myself up with this Australian accent and then I couldn't do it at 9 years old. I had no work ethic back then, clearly.
Well, honestly, that's a difficult accent.
It is a really difficult accent. 9 years old, I really set myself up for failure.
You were, I guess, meeting challenges early
Yes.
in acting,
Yes.
even with a smaller part, which I think if you didn't have this passion or this burgeoning maybe proclivity for acting, that you probably wouldn't have done that. Most kids would be like, oh, 2 lines, whatever. And I remember the first play that I was in, that's the first thing I did. I just counted all my lines. I think people do that and they go, okay, my part is okay, that's a pretty big part or not or whatever.
Right.
And you kind of measure things that way. And like you said, I think you realized it pretty early on, which is to me pretty impressive because it took me a while to realize that acting was much more than that. How long are you on screen or how long are you on stage? That doesn't matter. It matters what are you doing while you're there and how are you approaching the role. When you look back, like you said, living life forwards, there's mystery and uncertainty in that experience, but looking back, you can understand it a little bit. Is there something that as you continually face fears, you realize the fear gets a little bit less controlling of you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's, in a lot of my journey, I've been very fortunate to have people to shove me off the cliff, or just situations that just kind of pop up and I go, oh, well, yeah, that came out of nowhere. That's obvious. Let me just do that. I've been very fortunate to have those moments because I think one of the ones was your class, was meeting you guys and going, and I think through the training that we did, I went, oh, this is like something doable and not totally esoteric. They're like concrete things I can do to work on this. And the more concrete that became, the more that I understood what was within my control, the smaller the fear got. And then I started to be able to see more clearly, I think in a way, what actually wasn't within my control. And that makes it easier to let go of, I think.
Yeah. If you can remember, so, because I have my own vantage point of your specific experience or growth in that class. Right. And I remember one of the things early on that you had talked about, I mean, I still quote this sometimes because I've seen it become thematic in students' development, which is and it starts in the repetition exercise. But I remember you saying at first, because you did a lot of repetition and you did a lot of it with the same person, with Katie,
right.
over and over. And it was sort of like, as an actor, you kind of look for, I want to be interesting. I want it to feel interesting or like it's worth watching to some degree. And so is there a law of diminishing returns on this? And I remember thinking, that's interesting. I wonder if there is, because I was pretty early on as a teacher. I had been around acting a lot and I had studied Sanford Meisner a lot and I had been in so many classes, but as a teacher, it's a different vantage point. And then it was really interesting because the more you did it, and we kind of all trusted, like just stay in it.
Yeah.
Because I think the key obviously is to make sure that you're not in your head while you act. A lot of actors, we just struggle with that so much. And the feeling of that is such torture while you're acting, that you're thinking about your acting while you're acting. It's terrible. Yeah. How can we get ourselves in the moment? And this trains you to do that. I remember you saying something that was so profound, which was, I finally feel free in my acting, because you did exactly that. You let go. You put all your attention on her and you realized, I can't control her. Welcome to my life. And I'm just kidding. No, but that's what life is. It's like you're interacting with people that have their own free will all the time, and you do too. And there's so much you can't control. You're driving down the street, you can't control anybody else but your own car. Yeah. And you have to. You won't drive anywhere. You won't go anywhere unless you just say, all right, let's see how this goes. I'm going to do my best to stay between the lines. The same is kind of true in acting. Do you remember the moment for you where that started to click? Was it just jumping off the cliff and being like, I'm just going to let it go and see what happens? Or was it something else?
I don't remember that specific instance, actually. But it's funny because I do remember the conversation about the law of diminishing returns. And I do remember later on going, oh, no, it's not necessarily diminishing returns, because the more I let go and work off of her, it's literally always going to be different. I mean, I think that the diminishing returns I saw was, oh, I'm getting used to this person. I'm starting to understand their tics and like what they do. And, you know, I was observing Katie so much that I understood, oh, when she looks this way, it means this, and et cetera. That's the diminishing returns, but there's always life over there to react off of. I think for me, the freedom, what I recall is the freedom coming as a gradual process. I do remember I think there was one day in a particular, and maybe this is the day you're talking about, where I was like, oh, I've kind of hit on something here. Like, here we are. But I mostly remember it as a gradual process and a lot of hard work. And a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Sometimes literally all three of those sometimes. In the best way. But no, I don't remember it necessarily coming all at once.
Well, there's an interesting, I think, lesson here. I think a lot of actors that get into it, you know, a lot of them are young and a lot of them are seeing the reward, I think, that the world or an industry bestows upon them. And that's the carrot that they're chasing. Yeah. But what they don't realize is the ones whose work has an everlasting impact or some indelible impact on you, it does not happen by accident, and it doesn't happen because someone's just special or something. It's a result of a lot of opportunity and right place, right time, but it also is hard work. And I say this all the time because I just love the quote, but it's that Damian Lillard quote about work ethic. And he says, if you want to look good in front of thousands, you have to outwork thousands in front of no one.
Yeah.
And you were the only student in this program, the only one besides Katie, she was not technically a student, but she was there working with you. But you were the only official student. And it sounds insane a little bit, but it's like we met twice a week, 3 hours at a time. We would drive an hour and 15 minutes one way.
Yep.
And it was really that desire. It was like, I just want Ashton to have the thing that I got from Jim, because Jim followed that voice that was like, you need to go teach.
Yes.
Even though he was a younger guy and he was in his career, it was like, I don't know. Thank God he did that, because I wouldn't have ever had proper training. Now it's still me, you know, I still have to show up every day and rehearse every day and go to class twice a week as well. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make is it's a result of the discipline that leads to the freedom. It's kind of a crazy thing, but you saying, I'm going to keep kind of being a little uncomfortable and trying things and seeing what happens and starting to experience that growth and get to that freedom. Because I think that's what was really interesting. I think when you reflect on moments of training, there are highlights that kind of are beacons of progress for you. And I'm speaking generally, you know, because I'm thinking about it from my own perspective in my own training, but also as a teacher and watching you. But even particularly, I don't know if you remember this moment either, but like doing a Spoon River, and that was a moment where you really let go. And it was like all of the stepping stones that
forgotten about that Spoon River. Yes.
Katie,
yeah.
We talked about it this week. Katie was like, I'll never forget that moment.
Yeah.
Because you totally released.
Yeah.
And you just went with whatever. And it was a total instinct, and it took a lot of courage. And
was this the time I think I was doing, what exercise was this? I was doing awe.
That's it.
Is this the one you're talking about?
That's it.
Yeah.
So we had, for context, we had an exercise. I think at that time, I think I was combining the Spoon River and emotional preparation, and which you can use in those, and you can use both of them. A Spoon River essentially is Edgar Lee Masters' anthology of people in a small town who had passed away, and it was their one last sort of poetic expression. Mm-hmm. If they had one chance to express something, this is what they would want to express. Some of it is love, some of it is revenge, some of it is passion, some of it is success, failures, whatever. And so you use that text, and you can assign an emotional preparation to it, or you can use it as a way of doing. But essentially, that text coupled with emotional preparation and the way that we were teaching it and the way that I was taught it is kind of Sanford Meisner down, which is utilizing your imagination to put yourself in an emotional state that is right for the first moment of a scene. Mm-hmm. That you're not preparing for 2 minutes into a scene, but you're preparing for the first moment. Anyway, you were given awe. Yeah. Awe. And it was like, you immediately have to process that. And the key, hopefully, is that you don't visualize what awe looks like and try to emulate that or force that, but instead let your instinct and imagination take you to a place where you as Ashton, you as the actual actor might feel that way. Yeah. And so the first thing that comes to mind right now as I think about it is going to Glacier National Park. And I've never been. It sounds amazing. The going to the Sun Road, you know, Katie and I spent our honeymoon there, and having the moment of like, you know, I have it now. Maybe I would just reflect on that, or maybe I would imagine being there now, or maybe there's a million things I could imagine. And if you have an exercised imagination, or an imagination that you work, it can get stronger and it can really work for you. And this was that moment where you were given awe. And so you don't have to go through the specifics, but what was that moment for you? Because it felt for me, as I was a teacher, but I was kind of an audience member in a way too, where I was very moved by it. Like I said, Katie said she'll never forget it. I remember Katie's words, something along the line of her words, which was she almost didn't want to watch.
because it was such like a private moment, which I felt too. No, but I do want to share this story because it was a really pivotal moment for me as an actor. So I remember that. I remember getting, I don't know if we had like a wheel of emotions or something. No, we did. We had one. I had it on my phone, and either you gave it to me or I picked it. I don't know. I pretty much knew where I needed to go right away. It did not take me long. It's like I thought about it and it's like, oh, that feeling's right there. And it's a feeling I was familiar with. It was a feeling I was familiar with from religious experiences that I'd had. And in some ways, not to go too far into my religious experiences, but it was a feeling that immediately made me feel uncomfortable. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to do this. And like just the fear was just like, well, and it was strange because it wasn't like, oh, I went to a particular place or I imagined a particular thing. The feeling was just there and I had to deal with it. And I could see how it would turn out. I could like visualize how it would turn out if I did it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be like kneeling and something, not in the sense of bad idea, man, but in the sense of like, this is what this is. And I don't know if you remember, but I think I stood back there for a good 5 minutes.
You did.
And literally that 5 minutes was just me going, oh, am I really going to do this? Okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. And so finally I was like, okay, I want to be an actor. So,
yeah.
So that was the strange thing about it. Cause I remember afterwards thinking like, that was odd in the sense that I didn't feel like I followed the technique of like, oh, imagine something. It was just like, okay, the feeling's there. I'm going with it. And that ended up being so instructive for me later on as an actor, because one of my favorite quotes is, your acting will never be good until it's your own. And I was just like, yeah, like Sanford Meisner can tell me all this stuff all he wants, but if I have something that I just go with and it's just gonna be good, or not good, but just what's necessary for the moment, then I just go with that.
Yeah.
Detour, coming back to coming out on stage, even I was uncomfortable. Like I could feel the privacy of the moment. And I had an awareness of you guys there. But I don't know. I guess in that moment I had just committed to what I was doing, and I was like, well, I'm uncomfortable and that's just going to be what it is. And that's started to be so important for my work later on and now. And I've been on this journey with that all of this year, which has been great. But yeah, I can kind of point back to that moment as really, really important for my growth.
And I think that's important for people to hear. And it's great that you're sharing it, because it is really that moment when you are back there. That's what is really going to make or break your ability to overcome fear.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it anyway? Are you going to take the contrary action to the discomfort you are about to feel?
Yeah.
And actors just do it anyway. And this is what I love about, and we've touched on fear a little bit, a lot, but it was really, you talked about Rumpelstiltskin, you talked about your first show. The thing that's
terrifying figure,
a towering character.
Yes.
Although rather short.
On stilts.
No less.
In a skin.
Wow. Just spinning that. Anyway.
Yep.
No, but he Philip Seymour Hoffman is who I'm thinking of. He had shared this story about being a very young actor, and he was in, I think it was Tom Sawyer, and he started the show, and he was, like I said, a young kid acting in this play, and children's theater or something. So he would go outside, and he would break a branch off of the tree, and then he would come on, and he would fence with this branch. And And that's how he started every show. So he would go outside, break the branch, come back in and start the show. He went outside, broke a branch off the tree, and the door was locked and he couldn't open it. And he was panicking for like 10 minutes, crying, sobbing, freaking out.
Yeah.
And he said it was not only the fact that he couldn't start the show and people were going to wait, where's he at? But he was also petrified of going on stage. And he had shared something that it was so helpful for me as a young actor who hadn't had much experience when I read this story to hear my favorite actor who inspired me to act say this, which I thought was amazing. He said, the feeling I had back then is the feeling I have now. It doesn't go away. A lot of people think you act because you can't wait to be in the spotlight. You can't wait for people to see you. It's usually the opposite. Yeah. You have to act in spite of the fear. Because there's usually an artist has something they're dying to express.
Yes.
And we've talked about art being an outer molding of your inner life. And that's maybe one take on it, that you're trying to transmit a feeling you had about something to someone who's taking the art in, watching it, listening, whatever they're doing as the audience member. It matters so much to you. It's so meaningful to you that you're going, I don't care about this, whatever someone might think or what someone might say. And we know the world is full of negative criticisms of actors' work. And you're going, I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway. And that to me is one reason why I absolutely love actors is because that's what they do. It's not just, oh no, I don't want anyone to see me be vulnerable here and to go to this place, which is obviously so private, but it's also everything. Just saying, I'm going to act now. Like I played basketball for, I don't know what it was, 15 years or something. It was on varsity in high school. And then I just quit and did theater. And the second play I did, I was playing 7 German characters and 3 of them were women and 4 of them were men. And my dad went from seeing me.
Hold on, what show was this?
It was called The Werewolf's Curse.
Wow.
Have you ever heard of this?
No.
It's a silly Halloween play.
Okay, sure.
I was playing the doppelgangers. I was like this German family. So I was like all of them. It was
funny.
like the Nutty Professor or something.
Okay, sure. Right.
And, but it was just funny because my dad was like, you went from playing point guard on varsity basketball. You've been wanting to do this since you were 5, which is true. I love basketball.
Yeah.
To this, he just was like, what is that? What are you doing? I don't understand. And I was like, I know, it's really hard to explain. I love this, and there's a lot of, even if it's unintentional or sometimes it's overt opposition to your desire to act,
right, that
actors go, I got to do it anyway. I got to do it anyway. And then you get to a class and for me, it was in New York and it was just total annihilation when your heart is out there and, oh, what about this? And they're like,
yes,
garbage.
Yeah.
Fake.
Yeah.
You suck. And you're like, oh, I'm never doing that again.
Right.
And they're like, do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll once again tell you how fake and garbage it is.
How terrible you are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so you sharing that moment is so inspiring to me. And I think to many others that are maybe setting out to do it and go, oh, I feel that way. You got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And you're not alone in that. And there's real beauty on the other side of it. Because like you said, it was a pivotal moment for you, and it's one that set you up to be facing a number of challenges all the time, artistically or in life. And I think that's what we're here to do is try to overcome those things that are trying to prevent us from doing what we're meant to do. So thank you for sharing that.
And it's so funny that Philip Seymour Hoffman said that because that same feeling of panic when I was a kid trying to do this Australian accent, I have that same feeling of panic when I'm not prepared on something and I go out and it's like, oh, this isn't right. Oh no, it's the worst. And then you have to make it work anyway because you're on stage. It's happening live. It's happening now.
You just have to do it.
You just have to do it.
Yeah. And then you do it and you go, okay, all right.
Yeah.
There's some things I could get better at.
I didn't die.
Yeah, I'm not dead.
Yeah. What do you know?
I can get maybe I can work on this, get a little bit better, refine it. He said he was always looking for the easy way out as soon as he got a role.
And he was same.
Eventually, I had to come around to asking the hard questions about myself, about the character, relating those two things. Oh, I wanted to say this too. When you said you were going against sort of the conventional wisdom of Sanford Meisner with the imagination versus maybe the experience or what have you in terms of emotional preparation, what you said is so right. It until it's your own is everything. When I was in class with Jim, he used to say, and it's something that Sanford Meisner says, but ultimately it's like I think it was, you need to train yourself to the point where no one acts quite the way you do.
I love that.
And the point isn't to be different. The point is to mine so deeply within yourself that you can't possibly be a copy of anything.
Yeah.
It's just simply you. It's like that Kurt Cobain quote, trying to be someone else is a waste of who you are. And that's really what it was.
I often feel like me getting into this career is a couple things. Is one, there's some author, I don't remember who it is, who said, yeah, I never wanted to work. I worked really, really hard so I don't have to work. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, I often feel like me getting into this career is trying to share with the rest of the world the joy I felt making stories out of Legos with my sister that I had growing up. And there's so much of that, like my experience growing up, that's so unique. Like I was homeschooled all the way through, right? Which isn't like, oh, that's going to bring some great deep thing to your acting, but it brings something, right? But just finding, I think so often I'm trying to get back to, like I was sharing, like, oh, I feel free. Finding the freedom, the joy, the ridiculousness of being with friends and bantering, or, quiet moments with, family, loved ones, etc. And breaking down the barrier between, oh, that's that experience, and now I have to present something similar. And just being like, well, it's not a presentation. It's just, how can I live that again and let other people share it with me? That's so often, I feel like what I'm trying to get back to, and so many of those experiences for myself are so unique that a lot of times I dismiss them because I'm like, no one's going to relate to that. And I find when I go to those places that are like, oh, this is weird, I don't know if anyone's going to get it, that's when it's the best stuff.
Man, you're so right. I mean, it's that thing, like what's most personal is most universal.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because it also goes in line with what Stanislavski was saying about public solitude.
Yes.
And that's literally what you did was provide public solitude when you were like, the effect it had on Katie was, I shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And yet an actor's on stage. So what are you talking about? But that's really what it is. I think a lot of actors, hopefully they're striving for that, but it does take tremendous courage and overcoming a lot of fear. But what you said there also is so in line with it, that there's a freedom in solitude. Usually I think you feel, okay, I can at least be myself here. If there's no one around, I can relax,
right.
Whatever. I don't have to put on a show or a mask or whatever. And when there's other people that you actually do feel comfortable with, and you do feel like you can be yourself. I mean, that's a Henrik Ibsen quote where he said, what's man's first duty? To be himself.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it that simple? And it's like, yeah, but it's not that easy.
It's not easy.
It's really hard. And
yeah,
that's what artists are called to do, I think, is if you're going to really create some sort of outer molding that reflects your inner life, you better be familiar with your inner life and not be too afraid to prevent you from making that outer molding of it.
Right.
And it's like, gee, that's hard. Because then it opens it,
it's
like
hard.
We said, it opens it up to criticism. And
right.
how's this going to be received? And we said, well, we're not doing it necessarily for that. It'd be nice if people enjoyed it or they were moved by it. But what you just said, I think, resonates with a lot of creators and a lot of directors and writers and actors and artists, because I just worked on this project with my buddy Adam Paul Stone. He's a director. He's great director, great person. And we were working on this project with this great musician, Jeremy Gravely, and we were doing a music video for him. And that explored, it was Jeremy's expression of love for his grandfather. And and the video was exploring through the lyrics. It was kind of inspiring a lot of the scenes that Adam ended up writing, where my character is exploring old boxes in the garage and kind of going through things and finds a VHS tape, which reflects, oh my gosh, this is me and my grandfather and you're like transported back to that time.
Yeah.
And the song is telling you about that I got my fire from my grandfather, and he gave me so many great things. And that is so interesting because as Adam was kind of editing the video together, what we all shot, he was like crying watching it because he was I think he was trying to create what you just said. I'm trying to recreate with my art something I felt before, and that I still feel now. And when you talked about the Legos with your sister, it reminded me of being a filmmaker, being a director of even theater as well. I was talking to my longest friend, Kurt Christian, his dad, Mr. Christian, Keith. We were talking one day and he was talking, why do you direct? What is it about directing? And I was like, it's the only way that I can tell people how I feel.
Yeah.
That words alone can't quite do it justice. Because I felt like as a kid, I was like in the corner observing life and going, they're miscommunicating. Are you reading that behavior? He's saying that. Oh, you don't understand. I wish. And it was a way for me to like quiet down. And this is what an audience does. They quiet down and they listen and go, can I just project how it felt, but also help you guys see that there's so much love here and you're missing it, I think, because of these other things. And to me, if there's any value in directing it, it's something about that I can somehow give you that feeling that I wish I could express, but I can't, because it's just words can only do so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we as actors, we can be part of that for other directors too, or coming in, a writer saying, I'm really trying to get to this thing. And that was something Adam said too. He's like, he had an idea for a movie. He was like, I can't quite say what it's about. And I was like, that's why you're writing a script. You can't say it.
Right.
You need the elements of film. You need the lighting, and you need the sound, and you need the sequence of images and human behavior and emotion and all those things to get to that feeling.
Yeah.
Right. That you had, that the audience should also hopefully feel.
Yeah.
If it works.
Right. If
it works.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something to me. You were the one that shared with me. I say this quote all the time, but this D.W. Winnicott quote.
Yeah.
Do you remember this one?
Yeah. I actually thought of it earlier.
Did you?
But then we were talking about something else. So, yeah.
You shared this quote with me, and it's, artists are driven by the tension between the desire to communicate and the desire to hide. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what we've been talking about? It's like, I don't want to be seen. I must say this. It's like, well, what are you
Well, which one do you want?
What's it going to be?
Yeah.
What's been your relationship with that quote lately?
Oh man. All I can think about right now is this elf character that I do. Because that's such a fun, that character is such a funny thing. So to give your viewers context.
Yes.
So I do an elf character at a mall. And I always have to do this. It's like, it's more than just a Christmas elf. I've been really fortunate. I've done, now just last week, I did a radio ad for them. I've done media appearances for them. I got to be on Good Morning Texas a couple years ago as this elf character, which is not like amazing, but it was very fun and like, well, this is neat, right? And so this character has become kind of like this icon in that space. And but a lot of what I do with that character is live interaction with people. It's improv and it's in character. Anyway, to bring this all around, that character is so funny because if it were Ashton doing the things that Tinsel McJingles III does,
it's the best name ever.
It's a very serious elf, okay? Like, Joel. His friends call him Sugar Socks. If it were Ashton doing these things, I would be so embarrassed. Like, I'm in there, like, doing, like, little jigs with kids and saying the most outlandish things to people. Tinsel is very stuck on himself. And, you know, I mean, he's kind of a toot, okay?
Of course.
And you know, if it were me doing these things, I would be very embarrassed. But because it's the character, wait, it's still me. Hold on. But because it's the character, I feel safe. I feel safe behind the mask. And I think in a way that is together my desire to express my arrogance, apparently, with this character, and the desire to hide behind that mask. And I think there are levels to that as an actor where you have a character like this that is very like quippy and for entertainment, and the mask makes sense for this character. But then I think there are other moments as an actor, like I had in Awe, where I really did have to completely strip a mask away and just be like, this is my core. And that's where a level of courage comes in. As Tinsel developing that character, that character has been such a useful tool for me of how to develop a character. Like early on, I was more nervous with it because I couldn't hide, because I was trying to figure out, okay, how does he move? How does he breathe? How does he talk? How does he interact in a space where I'm constantly interacting with people? Like there's no safety. It's like you cut the strings. There's no stage. There's no proscenium. There's no, you know, okay, if you turn this way, the audience can't see that your squib's on this side. Like you're just there. So that was a really challenging environment to build that. So there was courage there. Now when I do it, I have a moment before I go out there that I'm like, okay, where's the character? Okay, here it is. But I think, so that's been built. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't take as much courage to go out and do that now.
Yeah. Is it something about, do you think when you do something so often that it becomes almost second nature in a way?
Right.
That
100%.
The first time you go on stage, the first time you do a take, as you know, you have a characterization and you're like, is the dialect right? Is my walk right? Is everything is it right? You know, based on the 30th day.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I just click into this, or I can get into this much easier because you have such experience with that character. It's still there. You have a little bit, but it's not like day one.
No. And then I don't know, maybe if I did all 1,000 times on stage, maybe it would become easier in some way with the fear aspect.
Right. Like imagining, I think there's a couple of plays we've discussed in the past that maybe would require, well, I think it would require so much of you, all of you, something like A View from the Bridge or even The Crucible.
Yeah.
It's like if you were doing
that. I think Beyond the Horizon now.
Oh.
Didn't you do that play?
That was I worked on my final scenes at Playhouse West Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We did, me and Tori Raddermanis did 3 scenes from that for our kind of final scenes over the course of 3 or 4 months. So I was really like heavily into that play for a while. But yeah, wow, what a play. It's asking a lot of you. Like if you were doing that in the first time in rehearsal, it's like, ooh, this is going to be a lot, versus if you did it for a year, you know, and if it was a Broadway schedule, 8 shows a week or whatever, you'd be like, yeah, I'm doing that again.
Right.
I mean, I remember seeing Tracy Letts in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I sat pretty close, and my mom went to high school with him. And so he was like at the stage door and I got to talk to him, and I mistakenly said the wrong name because my mom had a different name in high school and I was nervous, and he was like, I got an email. I don't know anybody. Hi. And I had just watched him play George in this play for like 3.5 hours. Oof. And he was incredible.
Yeah.
And I was like, my mom, high school, Oklahoma. And he was like, what? Yes. No, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Are we done? We're done. And I was like terrified. Okay. But I remember, I was like, how could he go through so much in one night and do this all week for months? And I think it's that you reach a certain point, the discipline.
The fear grows smaller.
It just grows
Right.
smaller.
I feel like there's always a hump. You always have to make a decision. Even if it's small, you go, yes, I'm doing this. But yeah, it gets smaller over time.
And I think that's part of the value that I think you felt and found when you were doing repetition so often.
Yeah.
That when you were finally like, you know what? I'm going to let go more and I'm going to just really take her in. And yes, it's Katie. And you kind of reach a deeper level because it becomes more about the point of view you have over someone than just, oh, you're nodding, you're shaking your head. It's like, okay, but what's your point of view of it?
Yeah.
And when you get that, you start to really engage on a deeper level, but you're continually practicing putting all of your attention on something that you just can't predict. And when you not only experience that, but then that starts to become how you work, then I think not only does the fear grow smaller, but I feel like the trust in the moment grows larger because you're like, well, this yields more positive results than the other thing I used to do, trying to
force it.
And I don't know if you've seen or even felt this way before on one side or the other, but actors falling into the trap of like telling the other actor, hey, you need to do this. If you do that, you just need to do this so that I can do that.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like stand those actors.
Kind of the director's job.
Yeah.
Kind of the director's job. You don't need to be doing that. And it's not even like the work is good anyway. You know, you're just really trying to control things you can't, which I think is almost the definition of insanity. Almost.
Yes.
But it's way more freeing. And I think the feeling of that joy and that freedom and that serenity comes from being like, I don't know. And it all is encapsulated in that Meisner quote, like every moment has a meaning all its own. It's like, so why am I afraid of doing 45 takes? Like every take has a meaning all its own. Why am I afraid of doing 108 shows? Every show has a meaning all its own. Every moment within that show has a meaning all its own. I just live in the moment. And if you train yourself to do that, it just becomes constantly freeing. The fear becomes less and less. The trust becomes more and more. Yeah. And I think the paradox for me was like, if I let go, I'm going to be a fraud and found out and I'm going to fail. Yeah. But really it's like you become better as an actor when you're able to do that.
Yeah.
And I guess a practical application, something to maybe touch on here at the end is we've acted together a lot, but it was cool that we got to really act in a movie together.
I know.
And we're really close to the movie being done. And I've been in the editing sessions with our editor, John Eisen, and editing you a lot because you're in some scenes and you did such a great job. But I was wondering recently, because I think we talked about it a lot. We were obviously, like I said, we became fast friends.
Yeah.
But I guess in reflecting on that time, the things that you were learning about the freedom and the progression and the growth and trusting your instincts and letting acting be your own and not just following the guidebook or something, which is not real, but just following your instincts. When you were there shooting, because I've watched every take, I've watched it meticulously.
Yeah.
And you just have such freedom. It seems like when you are acting, it just doesn't, you never ever look like you're acting. And
thank you. Wow.
You don't.
Thank you.
And I wouldn't have cast you if I thought that you would. Yeah. Because I saw you every week and I was like, this guy's great. Yeah. Like, you're great. I know you're going to be great in this. And it was such a joy to work with you and in that way. But I also got to act with you in the scene.
Right.
Because I was directing it, but I was also acting in it. And we were in the courtroom. So what was it like?
It's funny because I forget about the courtroom. Yeah. When I think about the film, all I think about is the scene of the motel. Yeah. But then we also had the courtroom with Terry.
Yes. Terry Martin.
Which was amazing.
Yeah. Terry Martin. Shout out to Terry. He's an amazing actor. Yeah. An amazing acting teacher in the area. Just amazing. And you worked with him before.
Right. I trained under him before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And he's
so good.
He's great. Yeah. And so I guess, you were with two acting teachers in a scene.
Yep. Yes, I was.
What was that like from your perspective? Because it felt for me as because I'm also an actor, it felt very free.
It actually
while
felt
we were doing
really good. I mean, Yeah, I had 2 acting coaches in my scene with me. So yeah, I was a little nervous. One of whom had hired me to be in his movie. But so yeah, no, I definitely felt some pressure from that. But once I sat down in the chair, once I got the mic on, once we were going, then it was like, oh yeah, it's Terry and Adam. Like I can trust them implicitly in this scene. And then it just went. And I think the reason I don't think about the courtroom scene all that often is because it was so just like natural. And then we were done. It was like, well, that wasn't hard at all because it was so free.
I can't wait to show people the movie because of many reasons, but specifically those scenes are just honestly very good. And I think what you notice is when you're in it, it's sort of interesting because you can kind of forget it and you just in and out, and then you're like, well, we'll see. And then a lot of time really goes by before you even get to see it. But what you're going to get the luxury of, and hope every audience member will, is seeing everything together. Mm-hmm. Those little the tension between even our characters, between you and the judge, when you admit things that you'd rather not on the stand.
Right.
There's such great behavior and tension. Mm-hmm. And that's our job as filmmakers is to really zoom in and maximize the tension of those particular moments because there's so much riding on the case for the custody of this child that it really matters. Your testimony, every little thing you do, every little thing you say, how you respond to me, how you respond to Terry, how you respond to Jeff Nicholson, Richard Truesdale, how you respond to these people. And it's just so seamless and it feels so lived in. And also the juxtaposition between the prior scene and that is really arresting because you do have these 2 sides of you that this character is like, wait, this isn't right. And it's funny because the justice system is trying to get to the truth. And yet who is this guy? Yeah. And that's kind of my character's job is to like, no.
This is the guy.
He looks good. He's not a good guy. Stop it. Don't you do that. Don't. And that's really what
take the compliment, folks.
But that's what's so exciting and to see that an actor serving that part in such a truthful way. Like I remember watching Falling in Love, this 1980 film with Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep. And I was watching with my mom for the first time. And I was really, I just finished Playhouse. I mean, it was like the peak of my nerdiness. I mean, maybe I'm pretty nerd. No, but I was really nerdy and I would pause movies and be like, Mom, let me tell you about this. And there was a moment where De Niro is just simply walking through a construction site. That's it. He's kind of the man, one of the managers of it. He's walking through a construction site and paused it. And I was like, Mom, you don't understand how hard it is to make it look that easy, what he's doing. It's how just so real that is. It takes so much effort and training and work, and again, work behind closed doors to get to where you seem like you are not acting. And that's what your scenes are, is like, you're just like, this guy's just that guy. He's just really, this is not acting, but I was there when you were growing through it. Terry was there when you were growing through it. Yep. And I think that's really what we're doing all the time. It's something that John Patrick Shanley told Jim one time. He texted him, and they were doing Prodigal Son with Timothée Chalamet and all that stuff back in New York. Sure, right. He texted him and was like, how's Prodigal Son going? And John Patrick, Shanley said, working really, really hard to make it look easy. And I think that's what you do in this movie. Yeah. And I'm excited. It's so cool to see. I'm glad you felt that way too while you were acting, that you felt, oh, this is fun. Yeah. The other scene, there was definitely tricky. It was tricky because it was violent. Yeah. And we were trying to find a way to do that in a way that sold it, but that was also safe. But it was also real. It's a hard, tricky balance. Yeah. And we all were trying to do it on the time crunch too. The sun was setting.
Right. It was
hard.
We just had to get it. Yeah.
It was very challenging.
It made it hard. Yeah. Yeah. But still feel good about that scene. Yeah. Overall.
It was great. Yeah. It was so fun. And I'm excited to share it. But I guess one last question. in reflecting, which we've done, we've reflected a little bit on our younger selves approaching acting for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What is something that you would tell your younger self in these moments of should I or shouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say now, knowing what you know?
Oh man, I think about this sometimes, actually, and it's hard because my younger self was very hard-headed. So I don't think there's anything I could have told my younger self to change anything. But if I was going to try, if I was going to try, I would say two things. One is go for it, and two is it's worth it. I know for me, I've thought a lot about the meaning and place of story in the world, especially with social media and kind of in a way like the conflation sometimes of like influencer work and then like content creation and like filmmaking and storytelling and entertainment. And you know, if someone works in that, good, get your bread, like fantastic. But I think sometimes the general public can start to devalue the work we do because you have, you know, influencers that kind of make the leap into acting, partly because of Instagram followers, et cetera. And I think for a while I had gotten discouraged by that, seeing that and going, man, I mean, what's even the point of like what this thing is that we do? And I've had to think about it a long time, figuring out my why. And every time I just saw Wicked on Saturday, bawling through that movie. Oh my God.
Wow.
And I was just like, I love Cynthia Erivo. Never seen a bad performance from that woman. And I just walked away going, yeah, okay. Like this, there's messages and themes in that movie, the power of friendship, et cetera. But it's also, there's a lot going on in that film. But walking away, I was just like, I feel so encouraged by this. I feel like this experience has made me better in a way. And I was like, yeah, that's what our work does for people. It can do. I mean, sometimes your Tinsel McJingle's the third. But even that is like, oh, it's Christmas and that's making memories for people. I care about that. So anyway, I would tell my younger self, it's worth it. It matters.
I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, anybody who's listening, who's on the fence and a little scared, go for it. It's worth it. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Of course.
Where can people find you, Ashton?
People can find me at my website, ashtonlewisactor.com, and on IMDb as well.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ashton. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. This is In the Moment, Anytown Actors Lab. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.